How's it going, guys? Dan here for BladeReviews.com. Welcome to my review of the Blackwater Ursa 6. First off, I want to say this is going to be kind of a longer video, but I think it's going to be worth your time. The steel that the Ursa 6 uses is one that a lot of people probably aren't already familiar with, and I did spend a lot of time recording some cutting and testing footage. And frankly, there's a lot of interesting details with this one. So with that said, I want to say a couple words about Blackwater. They are the same people who are behind DPX gear. So this knife was designed by Robert Young Pelton, and they are based out of California. The knife was made in Maniago, Italy, manufactured by Lion Steel. So exceptionally high quality, beautiful fit and finish, really impressive knife. Right out of the box, and even the box itself, it just all reeks of quality. So definitely a top shelf offering for you today. Let's talk a little bit more about the Ursa 6 and discuss some quick key dimensions. So the Ursa 6 has an overall length of 11.38 inches. It's got a 5.95 inch long blade, and it weighs 11.1 ounces. So this is what I would call a medium-sized knife. Admittedly, it's a heavy medium-sized knife. We'll get into that in a second. But first I want to show you a couple size comparisons. So here is the Ursa 6 next to a Cold Steel SRK. And then I've also got this Tops Hit 5 to compare. And you can see the Ursa 6 is right in the ballpark with both of these other knives. And I want to pull these blades off the table and show you one other key dimension, and that is the width. Right off the bat, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that this knife has a 6mm thick blade, so super thick, super stout, and it kind of leads us into our discussion of what's the intended use of this knife. I think it's important, especially as we move forward in the entire review. So in my opinion, this is not your average kind of camp knife. Certainly you could take this on a camp out with you, but I don't think it's the best tool for the job if that's what you're trying to accomplish. It's definitely not a bushcraft knife either. And really, it's not going to be like your typical survival knife or outdoor knife or hunting knife. It was primarily designed for soldiers, and if my research is correct, actually Navy SEALs. So you're looking at a weapon, first and foremost, a self-defense tool, and then a hard use tool. So there you go. There's the intended use. I mean, could you use this for something like food prep? Sure. If you're serving dog food for dinner and need to blast your way through a tin can, absolutely, this would be a great knife for food prep. That said, if you're going to make a 5-course meal, I wouldn't reach for the Ursa 6. It's just not going to turn out that pretty. So let's talk a little bit about the blade now that we've gotten a little bit of that preliminary discussion out of the way. And what we have here is a modified drop point blade shape. It almost looks like a spear point blade shape, but it's just not quite. It does have some dagger-esque qualities going back to our soldier's tool, use as a weapon or self-defense item. So of course you've got this lean profile to it, a very acute tip, although it does carry plenty of steel out to it. You do have these very aggressive and interesting top serrations here, so further adding to that kind of mentality of being extremely versatile but extremely durable and very effective at what it was designed to do. You do have a partial flat grind, and the knife has been given a black PVD coating. So this coating has held up well. I've cut wood, rope, cardboard, etc. with it. Where you start to see some scratching is where I did open up a tin can. And to be honest, opening cans, that's really not very impressive for any knife that's using a decent quality steel. But more importantly, this was a test of the PVD coating, and the coating held up well. I mean, I can't think of many coatings that are going to be completely impervious to metal on PVD contact or metal on coating contact. But all in all, the knife held up really well. The steel on this knife is called Nyolox. This is a German stainless steel, and I had previously had no experience with Nyolox, so I wanted to thoroughly test and evaluate it. I imagine for most of my American audience, you're probably not going to be super familiar with the steel. So that said, I started things out with a little bit of a rope cutting test. I had 10 feet of 5/8 inch thick manila rope, and I was cutting approximately every inch, so in the ballpark of 120 cuts. The thick blade is not the most amazing slicer, so it did work its way through the rope, no problem at all, but it's not like I was using a paramilitary tool or a knife that was really designed to slice. That said, the edge held up fine. By the end of it, it was somewhat diminished, but still plenty usable, and I moved on to some thicker rope. I made about a dozen to 2 dozen cuts with the thicker rope. It actually did a great job with that. At that point, I decided to move on to another material. I was carving with a little bit of just, pressure-treated lumber here, or treated lumber. So what I had were some 2x2s, and I was carving, and the knife took some nice aggressive chunks out of the wood there. I did make something that might pass for a feather stick if you're a kindergartner trying to make your first feather stick. It might look something like that, but more importantly, it was a test of the edge's strength and its durability. No issues with chipping, rolling, obviously no issues with the knife cracking or breaking or anything like that. I did do a little bit of chopping as well to further test that edge, and it held up well. The knife obviously is not designed to be a chopper. It's got a mid kind of balance instead of a blade forward balance point, so more designed to be useful in hand than really swing at things. But it did take some nasty chunks out of the wood. It did hold up very well to the testing. At that point, the edge was significantly less sharp than it was when I started out with the testing, so I wanted to bring the knife inside and quickly sharpen it up. I selected a medium grit Spyderco Sharpmaker ceramic rod, and I actually just used a Sharpmaker on this, keeping in mind that as a soldier's tool, you're probably not going to have access to very fancy sharpening equipment out there in the field. Just wanted to put something on there that was rough and ready, something like a medium grit ceramic rod, because who knows, maybe all you have is a file on your multi-tool or a small sharpening stone with you. I'm pleased to say that the Nylox sharpened extremely easily. This really took to a razor edge with very little effort at all. I was extremely impressed and very pleased to see how quickly this edge came back to life. So at that point, I went back outside. I had some very thick cardboard, and I just kind of blasted through a little bit of cardboard. It had no problem with that, even with the thicker geometry, and that doesn't surprise me too much. So I moved over to a little bit of tip testing, and I wanted to see how that fine tip would hold up under hard use. So I had a 2x4, and I just started probing with it. I was hitting it a couple times, testing, and then examining the tip. And before you know it, I'd blasted through the entire piece of wood. So I was very impressed with the way the tip held up on the Ursa 6. I don't doubt that this could be used as, say, a breaching tool, an entry tool. Very, very tough stuff. So yeah, the steel and the knife held up well. Kind of my final thoughts on Nylox, at least for the time being. Keep in mind I haven't had a ton of experience with it. I'm very impressed with Nylox. It seems to behave a lot like a high carbon steel, like something like 1095, but it does appear to have better edge retention. It's extremely tough, extremely durable, very easy to sharpen. I think it's going to be a great choice for someone in the military who is going to be putting the knife up to a ton of tasks. Some of them are not going to be friendly. Some of them are not going to be what a knife is initially designed for. And I think Nylox is going to be a good choice in that kind of environment. So with that said, let's take a closer look at the handle here. And what we have is a very thick and substantial handle. Of course, you've got your backbone there, your 6mm thick piece of steel. And note that the spine of the knife has been slightly rounded. It's been capped, and that feels very nice. It's a cool detail. It just goes to show how high quality this knife is. And you've got two thick pieces of black G10 kind of flanking that piece of stainless steel there. So ultra thick peel ply G10. It's been given these very interesting grooved sort of patterns or groovings on the handles of the knife. So that was interesting to see. And it's very, very comfortable. Definitely fills the hand. It's quite substantial, provides good texture and grip. You do have a couple lashing points on your handle here to make the knife into a spear. You have this jimping that doubles as wire strippers as well. So that's interesting to see. You do have an oversized lanyard hole, and you do have a pry bar, bottle opener, and also, of course, your quote-unquote non-lethal option here for hammering, for self-defense, whatever you want to use it for. The handles are screw together and can be removed with a flathead driver. So your multi-tool, maybe some spare change if you happen to have any on you at the time, that can be used to get this handle open. And inside there is a hollow for storing survival supplies, very small survival supplies, maybe a little bit of fishing line or some waterproof matches or a $20 bill rolled up in there, something like that. So that's very interesting to see. Let's talk a little bit about how the Ursa 6 feels in hand, especially if you're going to be using the knife. And all in all, I found it very comfortable. Like this, it's nice. It feels natural. It does feel good in reverse grip as well, although I didn't really use it in reverse grip. But you can see it feels very natural there. The only issue I had was with this jimping. Now you can see it's cool jimping, but this bottom piece here is rather wide. And what happened was I found that my thumb got stuck in there, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but there is a little bit of a blister here. And it was a little more pronounced yesterday when I was really doing, I was cutting with this knife a couple days ago. It did start to raise up a bit of a blister. So my advice to Blackwater would be to kind of revisit this jimping, especially this bottom piece here, and consider making it smaller or changing the design a little bit. I know the knife is designed to be used with gloves, but if you've got fabric gloves, it'll probably tear a hole in the gloves eventually, I would imagine, because it did tear my thumb up a bit. So not a major criticism, but definitely something to consider. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the sheath here on the Ursa 6, and the knife does come with a black Cordura sheath. It's got a lot of places for mounting, a lot of different mounting options. First of all, you do have rivets on the top and bottom of the sheath. You also have these little slots for webbing or additional cordage. The sheath is also fully MOLLE compatible, so integrate it with your MOLLE gear or just use it as a belt loop. Either way, it should work well for you there. The sheath does include a front pocket, which is great for multi-tools, sharpening supplies, really whatever you want to store in there. For your retention system, you have first and foremost a plastic insert, and the knife inserts easily. There's no rattle. It secures the blade like that quite well. It is fully reversible, so for left or right side carry, what you do is you unscrew this screw at the base of the sheath, and then you can take the entire insert out and flip it around. In addition to this insert, you do have a secondary retention system in the form of a thick, heavy-duty strap and snap, and I like this a lot. The reason why is because it is mostly made of plastic, so you can, first of all, you can bend this out of the way. It does have some memory to it, so it keeps the strap well away from the blade as you're withdrawing the knife. That said, if you do happen to nick it, say you're under stress or something, and you do pull it out, and it catches on either the primary or secondary blade, since it is a thick piece of plastic here, it's not going to be as easy to saw through or cut through. It's going to be unlikely that you're going to actually cut through the sheath, at least on a single kind of day or deployment or whatever it is you're doing. So I think it's an improvement over a lot of the other Cordura sheaths I've seen. Very nice option. Secure, plenty of mounting possibilities here. So I like the sheath. That kind of takes us to the knife, guys. I'd like to offer some final thoughts on the Blackwater Ursa 6. All in all, I mean, it's a beautiful knife. Great attention to detail. Excellent fit and finish. The materials are top notch. I think Nylox was a great choice based on my somewhat limited, but hopefully fairly accurate testing. It should give you some idea as to how this steel is going to perform. In my hands, it feels a lot like a high carbon steel in that it's very tough and easy to sharpen, and also is capable of taking a very nice edge. But it is apparently a stainless steel, so less concerns with rust and corrosion, although keep in mind all steels will stain at some point, so it's not completely impervious to rust. The handles are comfortable. The G10 is quite luxurious. It's not every day you get a knife that's got a handle that's this thick. Good aggressive texture, feels good in hand. The sheath is definitely adequate for what we're working with. A nice Kydex sheath could be a good upgrade if you really plan on carrying this one every day. But yeah, all in all, I'm very impressed with the Ursa 6. Well made, nice materials. Definitely something to consider if you're in the position where you would need a tool like this. And even if you just think it's a cool knife, I mean, I'm here to say it's well built and entirely functional. So either way, the Ursa 6 strikes me as a big winner. Alright guys, that is the review. Thank you so much for watching once again. This is Dan for BladeReviews.com. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions. Take care, and I'll be back soon with another knife review.